Welcome. You found your way to Sleepy Historian, a quiet place for long history, spoken slowly, meant to stay with you even if your eyes close along the way. There is no rush here. No need to remember every detail. You can listen, drift, return, and listen again. If you enjoy this kind of calm history that moves at the pace of real human life, you can gently like the video, subscribe to the channel, or leave a short comment. Many people listen while resting or while the room is dark, and your quiet support helps this work continue. Now, settle in. Take a slow breath. Not a deep one, just an easy breath, the kind you don't have to think about. Let your shoulders lower slightly. Let the jaw loosen. If your eyes are open, they can close whenever they wish. Tonight, you're not standing in a temple or a palace. You're not watching grand ceremonies or carved stone walls. You are by the river. The Nile is close enough that you can hear it before you see it. A soft, steady movement. Water touching reeds. Water touching wood. The ground beneath you is uneven, packed earth mixed with old plant matter. It holds the day's warmth for a little while longer, though the air has begun to cool. The smell is familiar to those who live here. Damp mud, river plants, a faint trace of fish, an old rope that has been wet and dried too many times to count. This is not the Nile of murals and stories. Not the wide blue ribbon, painted clean and calm. This is the working Nile. The Nile that stains hands and clothes. The Nile that leaves people tired by mid-morning. You are here at a quiet hour, when the light is low and movement is minimal. Boats sit close to shore, some pulled halfway onto land, others rocking gently, held by ropes tied around stones or wooden posts driven into the mud. They creak softly, not loudly enough to be alarming, just enough to remind you that they're always shifting, always responding to the water. If you look closely, you see that none of these boats are perfect. The wood is uneven. The surfaces are worn smooth in some places and rough in others. Repairs overlap older repairs. Papyrus bundles are bound tightly together, their ends darkened from constant contact with water. Wooden holes show hairline cracks sealed with resin and cloth. No one expects these boats to last forever. They are built knowing they will need attention again and again. That is one of the quiet truths of life on the Nile. Nothing is finished. Nothing is ever fully complete. Even now, in this calm moment, someone nearby is awake. A figure sits low beside a boat, barely moving. Perhaps they're checking a rope by touch, not sight. Perhaps they're simply resting, using the boat's side as support. Work begins early here, but rest never feels quite deep. You may have heard that the Nile was gentle, that it gave freely, that it made life easy. But as you stand here, you begin to sense something else. The river gives, yes, but also asks. It asks for patience. It asks for time. It asks for bodies that can endure repetition. There is a faint chill rising from the water now. It settles around your ankles first, then slowly climbs. Clothing here is practical, layered when possible, but rarely fully dry. Even in warmer seasons, dampness lingers. At night and early morning, the cold can surprise you, especially when you've slept close to the river's edge. You shift your weight slightly, and the ground responds, soft but not unstable. This is familiar terrain to those who live here. They know where to step. They know where the mud is deeper. They know which patches look solid but are not. Beyond the boats, the river stretches into darkness. You cannot see the far bank clearly, only the suggestion of it. The Nile does not rush. It moves with confidence, slow and wide, carrying things you cannot see beneath the surface. Somewhere upstream, hours or days away, other people are standing much like you are now. They're listening to the same water, feeling the same air, preparing for the same kind of day. That is another quiet truth. Life on the Nile is shared, even when it feels solitary. Soon, the sky will begin to lighten. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just a gradual thinning of the darkness. When that happens, work will begin in earnest. Boats will be pushed free. Cargo will be shifted. Nets will be checked. People will move with practiced motions that conserve energy because they know how long the day can be. But for now, there is still this pause. You hear a soft splash, someone rinsing their hands, or perhaps cleaning a tool. Water drips back into the river in a slow rhythm. No one speaks loudly. Voices, when they appear, stay low, as if the river itself prefers quiet. As you listen, you may notice how the mind begins to slow. The steady presence of the water encourages it. There is nothing demanding your attention all at once. No single moment that requires urgency. This is how many hours on the Nile feel. Not dramatic, not memorable in a sharp way, just long. And yet these long hours shape everything. Boats are not symbols here. They are necessities. Without them, grain does not move. Stone does not travel. People do not cross. Messages arrive late, or not at all. The river is both road and boundary, and boats are the fragile answer to both. As you remain here, breathing quietly, you may begin to feel the slight tension that comes with relying on such simple tools. A rope frays slowly. A seam leaks gradually. Problems do not announce themselves loudly. They appear over time, in the form of extra effort, extra repair, extra caution. This is the unease of Nile life. Not fear, but awareness. Awareness that tomorrow depends on what holds together today. If you like, let your breathing match the imagined movement of the water. In and out, slow, even unforced. There is no need to picture every detail clearly. Let some things remain indistinct. The mind does not need sharp edges right now. You're not required to stay awake through all of this. You are allowed to drift. The river will continue whether you're listening or not. And as this night deepens and the first pale light approaches, you are ready to begin learning slowly about the boats themselves and the people who spend their lives beside them, touching water and wood until their hands remember the shapes even when their eyes are tired. For now, you remain here, beside the Nile, waiting as so many have waited before. Morning does not arrive all at once here. It seeps in. You become aware of it before you see it. A thinning of the darkness, a change in the way the air rests on your skin. The night has not ended, but it has loosened its grip. Somewhere above the river, the sky is lightening by degrees, so small they almost escape notice. You're lying close to the water. Not in comfort, exactly. The ground beneath you is firm in places, soft in others, shaped by many nights like this one. Whatever you're using for rest, woven mat, folded cloth, or a nothing at all, has taken on the cold from the earth. Your body knows it before your mind does. There is stiffness in the back, a dull ache in the hips. Fingers feel thick, slow to respond. You do not rise immediately. Few people do. The Nile teaches restraint even at waking. Energy is something to be saved, not spent thoughtlessly at the start of the day. You lie still for a moment, breathing quietly, listening. The river has not changed. It continues its low, steady movement, brushing against reeds, against hulls, against the shore. A boat nearby shifts slightly. The sound is familiar, wood pressing against water, rope tightening, then easing again. The boat is alive in a small way, always adjusting. It does not rest completely, even when the people around it try to. The air is cool now. Not painfully so, but enough to encourage movement eventually. You can feel it along the exposed parts of your body, face, hands, ankles. Clothing here is chosen for work, not for warmth, and early mornings like this make that clear. Dampness lingers from the night. Cloth does not dry quickly by the river. As your eyes open, the world appears in layers. The nearest things come first, the ground, the edge of a boat, a coil of rope. Farther away, shapes are still uncertain. The opposite bank remains a suggestion more than a place. The sky is a muted gray, with no color worth naming yet. You sit up slowly, too quickly, and the body protests. There's a moment of lightness in the head, a reminder that rest was shallow. Sleep beside the Nile rarely goes deep. Sounds intrude. Cold wakes you. There's always the awareness of water nearby. Around you, others are waking in their own time. A figure stands and stretches carefully, hands pressing into the lower back. Another remains seated, rubbing warmth into their palms before touching anything else. No one speaks much. Words are unnecessary this early, and voices feel heavy in the mouth. The smell of the river is stronger now. As the air shifts, it brings with it the scent of wet plants. mud disturbed by yesterday's work, and the faint trace of fish. It is not unpleasant to those who live here. It is simply present. It tells you where you are. You move your feet, testing the ground. The earth is cool, slightly damp. There are places where yesterday's footprints remain, shallow impressions that have not yet been erased by wind or water. Soon they will be gone, but for now, they mark the quiet continuity of days like this one. Work will begin soon, not because of a bell or a command, but because the day requires it. Boats must be checked before they move. Ropes examined. Surfaces touched and retouched, looking for changes that might matter later. You walk toward the nearest boat. It is small, narrow, designed for shallow water. The wood is darkened by years of use. When you place a hand on its side, it feels cold, almost damp, even where it appears dry. This boat has spent more time in the river than out of it. You run your fingers along a seam. This is not inspection in a formal sense. It is habit. You know where the weak places tend to be. You know which cracks are old and which might be new. A thin line of resin marks a repair made not long ago. It will hold for now. Everything here is about for now. Nearby, someone coughs softly. Another person steps into the water up to their ankles, rinsing their hands or perhaps their face. The water is cold enough to sting slightly, and you can see the brief hesitation before they commit to it. Then it is done, and the hands emerge dripping redder than before. The light continues to grow. Slowly, shapes sharpen. You can see the textures of things, the rough grain of wood, the frayed fibers of rope, the uneven surface of the riverbank. Birds begin to appear, moving low over the water, not calling loudly, just present. You become aware of hunger, but it is distant. Morning hunger is familiar and manageable. Food will come later, when the first tasks are complete. For now, the body accepts the delay. It has learned to. A man nearby squats beside his boat, adjusting a knot that did not loosen overnight, but might later. He works without looking closely, fingers moving from memory. Another person lifts a pole and tests its weight, shifting grip until it feels right. These are small acts, repeated daily, but each one matters. There's a quiet pressure in this routine. Not stress exactly, more like the steady awareness that mistakes cost time and time costs strength. The river does not forgive carelessness, but it rarely punishes it quickly. Consequences come later, when they are harder to avoid. You notice how the cold lingers even as the sky lightens. The sun has not reached you yet. Until it does, the chill remains, especially near the water. You pull your clothing closer, but it only helps a little. Movement will warm you more effectively than stillness. As you straighten, you look along the line of boats. None of them stand out as special. None are decorated. They are shaped by need and constraint. Length, width, draft, all chosen because they work here, not because they impress anyone. You think, briefly, of how these boats are spoken of in later times. Symbols of civilization, icons of a great river culture. But standing here, touching the cold wood, those ideas feel distant. This is not symbolism. This is labor. A soft voice speaks somewhere behind you. A short exchange, practical quiet. A question about when to move. An answer that suggests waiting a little longer. The current will be easier later. Or perhaps the wind might rise. Or perhaps there's simply no reason to hurry yet. Waiting is not wasted time here. It is part of the work. You settle into a slow rhythm. Check. Adjust. Wait. Breathe. The river continues to slide past, indifferent to your plans. It has its own pace, and you have learned, or are learning, to match it as best you can. The sun will rise fully soon. When it does, warmth will return, and with it a different kind of fatigue. For now, the morning belongs to this quiet preparation. Muscles waking reluctantly. Mind still half drifted from sleep. If you feel yourself growing heavy as you listen, that is appropriate. These mornings are heavy. They ask for presence, but not alertness. They unfold slowly, without urgency. You remain by the Nile, hands cool, breath visible in the faint light, doing what countless others have done. Waking, preparing, and accepting the day not as something to conquer, but as something to endure gently. As the morning settles into itself, Your attention turns again and again to the boats. Not because they are beautiful, not because they are impressive, but because they are never finished. You stand beside one now, its side pressed lightly into the mud where the waterline has shifted overnight. In the clearer light, its age is easy to see. The wood is uneven in color, dark where it has stayed wet, lighter where it has dried and cracked. No single board matches the next. Each was shaped by hand, fitted as closely as skill allowed, then accepted with its imperfections. You rest a hand along the hull. It feels cool and faintly rough. Small ridges catch the skin, old repairs layered upon older ones. Resin has been pressed into seams so many times that it forms a history of effort, each application a response to a slow problem. This is what most Nile boats are like. Simple in design, demanding in care. There is no moment when a boat becomes ready and stays that way. The river does not allow it. Water swells the wood, then shrinks it again. Sun dries it. Sand abrades it. Each journey changes the shape slightly, too subtly to notice at first, but enough to matter later. You crouch down, bringing your eyes level with the hull. This is how leaks are found, not by sight alone, but by familiarity. You know where water should not gather. You know which dark spots mean nothing, and which suggest weakness beneath. Nearby, someone kneels beside a papyrus boat, fingers pressing into the bundled reeds. Papyrus boats are lighter, easier to move in shallow water, but they absorb moisture constantly. Their strength depends on tight binding. Loose cords means sagging, and sagging means drag, and drag means effort wasted. The person tightens a cord slowly, pulling it snug, then tying it off with a practice motion. They do not hurry. Pull too hard, and the reeds shift unevenly. Pull too little, and the boat softens before midday. This kind of work fills much of the day, though it is rarely acknowledged. When people speak later of travel or trade, they speak of destinations and cargo. They do not speak of these hours, the quiet checking, tightening, sealing. But without these hours, nothing moves. You straighten slowly, joints still stiff. The chill is easing now, replaced by the first hint of warmth. The sun is low, its light shallow and pale, but it reaches the riverbank at last. Where it touches, damp surfaces begin to dry. Steam lifts faintly from dark wood. You pick up a small tool, a wedge of wood smoothed by years of use. It fits comfortably in the hand. This tool has no decoration. It is not needed. Its purpose is narrow and constant, pressing fibers into gaps, smoothing resin before it cools. You kneel again and work along a seam. Press, slide, press again. The movement is repetitive, almost soothing. Your body knows this rhythm. It allows the mind to wander slightly, but not too far. Attention must remain close, or mistakes happen quietly. A mistake here does not cause immediate disaster. That is what makes it dangerous. A poorly sealed seam may hold for hours, even days. Only later, when the boat is heavy with cargo, or when the current presses harder, does the weakness reveal itself. This knowledge lingers in the background of every repair. Not fear, but caution. Across the riverbank, others are doing the same work in their own way. A man lifts a boat's edge and slides a flat stone beneath it, adjusting how it rests. A woman smooths fresh resin with her fingers, ignoring the way it clings to her skin. Someone else checks in or running a thumb along its length to find splinters. Tools are few. Hands do most of the work. Over time, the hands change, skin thickens, fingers stiffen. Small cuts appear and fade. The river takes its mark slowly. You notice how quiet the work remains. Conversation is minimal, and when it occurs, it stays close to the task. There is no need to speak about what everyone already knows. Boats require care. Care requires time. Time will pass regardless. The sun rises higher, and with it comes a different sensation. The chill retreats, but dampness remains trapped in clothing. Warmth does not bring comfort immediately. Instead, it creates heaviness. The air thickens slightly. Movement feels slower, though nothing has changed. You pause, standing still for a moment. The boat rests before you, unchanged in appearance, but slightly more secure than it was earlier. That is enough. Perfection is not expected, only improvement. Someone nearby shifts a papyrus bundle, adjusting its position. The reeds rustle softly, a dry sound layered over the wet presence of the river. This boat will not last as long as the wooden ones, but it is easier to repair. Everything here is a trade. As the morning progresses, repairs blend into preparation. Ropes are coiled, not neatly but reliably. Poles are stacked where they can be reached easily. Oars are placed across benches, their weight familiar. You begin to feel the first signs of fatigue, even though the day has barely begun. It is not exhaustion, just the dull awareness that effort has been made. This too is familiar. Fatigue here accumulates quietly, settling into the body like silt. The river glides past, reflecting the brightening sky. From the water's surface, the boats must look steady, complete. Only those close enough to touch them know how much attention they demand. This is the truth of Nile boats. They survive through constant care. They move because people accept this burden. You wipe your hands on your clothing, leaving faint streaks of resin and dirt. They will not come out completely. That is expected. Cleanliness is a temporary state here, easily lost. As you step back and look along the line of boats, you see the same pattern repeated. None are new. None are abandoned. All exist in a state between readiness and need. Soon, these boats will enter the river fully. They will carry weight. They will strain against current and wind. But their journey begins here, in these quiet hours of maintenance that rarely earn notice. You take one last look at the seam you worked on. It will hold for now, and for now is enough. After the repairs are finished, or at least paused, there is a stretch of time that feels less defined. Tools are set down. Hands are wiped against cloth. People stand, sit, or lean without clear purpose. This is not rest exactly. It is waiting. You feel it settle around you. The boats are ready enough to move, but they do not move yet. Something must happen first. Cargo must arrive. The light must improve. The current must ease. Or someone with authority must appear and give a small nod that changes nothing and everything at once. Until then, there is nothing to do but remain near. You choose a place along the riverbank where the ground is slightly firmer. You lower yourself carefully, joints still warm from work, but already aware of how easily they stiffen again. Sitting brings its own discomfort. The earth presses unevenly. A stone finds its way beneath one thigh. You shift once, then stop. Too much movement draws attention, even when no one is watching. The river continues, indifferent. You watch how the boats respond to the waiting. They do not grow impatient. They drift slightly, then return, tugged back by their ropes. The motion repeats itself, slow and predictable. If you stare long enough, the movement becomes almost hypnotic. Forward, pause, back again. Time stretches here. Without clear markers, it loses its shape. You know it is morning because the light is stronger, but beyond that, there is little to measure it by. No bells, no fixed hours, only the slow shift of shadows and the gradual warming of the air. Someone nearby stands and squints upriver. Perhaps they are looking for the first sign of cargo boat. Perhaps they are only giving their eyes something to do. After a while, they sit again. Nothing has changed. Waiting is not empty on the Nile. It is heavy. As you sit, your body begins to notice small things. The way your clothing clings where it is still damp. The faint itch of drying mud on your skin. The quiet ache that settles between the shoulders after bending and lifting. None of these sensations are sharp. They simply exist, steady and persistent. Your thoughts drift, but not far. They circle familiar ground. The tasks ahead, the distance to be traveled, the condition of the boat. These are not worries, exactly. They are considerations, always present, never resolved all at once. A sound draws your attention, footsteps on packed earth. A pair of figures approaches slowly, leading a donkey laden with sacks. Grain, perhaps. The animal moves carefully, hooves finding firm spots by instinct. The sacks sway with each step, brushing against the donkey's sides. This is what you were waiting for, or part of it. But even now, nothing happens immediately. The donkey is brought to a stop. The figures speak quietly. Someone gestures toward the boats, then toward the river. The sacks remain where they are. The waiting continues, only slightly altered. You remain seated, watching without urgency. There is no advantage in rushing forward. The order of things will reveal itself soon enough. The sun climbs higher, and with it, the warmth becomes more insistent. The chill of the morning fades completely, replaced by a different kind of discomfort. Heat gathers near the ground, trapped by still air. Sweat appears slowly, first along the back, then at the temples. Flies begin to gather, not in swarms, but individually, persistently. You wave one away without enthusiasm. It returns, or another takes its place. This, too, is part of waiting. Someone stands and stretches, arms raised briefly before dropping again. Another lies back on the ground, one arm over their eyes, blocking the light. Rest comes in fragments here, stolen between tasks. You become aware of thirst. Not severe, but present. Water is nearby, but is not taken casually. The river gives water, but it also carries sickness. Drinking is measured, thoughtful. You wait, knowing there will be a moment for it later. Minutes pass, or perhaps longer. It is difficult to tell. The donkey shifts its weight, ears flicking. One of the figures adjusts a strap. The sacks rustle softly. A child appears briefly at the edge of the scene, then is called away. Life continues around the waiting, but the boats remain still. This is when the weight of the day truly becomes apparent. Not during the lifting or the repairs, but here, in the pause. Muscles cool. The mind dulls slightly. Energy leaks away unnoticed. You understand now why people speak of endurance when they speak of river life. Not because of danger, but because of time. Because of how much of it must be carried without relief. Eventually, someone gives a short signal, a word, a gesture. It is not dramatic. Those who need to respond do so quietly. The donkey is led closer. Sacks are shifted from ground to boat, one at a time. You rise slowly, feeling the stiffness return as soon as you move. The body resists change, even when it is expected. You take a moment to steady yourself before reaching for the first sack. The waiting is not over. It has simply changed form. Soon there will be more lifting, more adjustment, more stillness between movements. The river will continue to move at its own pace, unaffected by your readiness. As you step forward to take your place again beside the boat, you carry the waiting with you. It settles into the muscles, into the breath. It becomes part of the work itself. And in this way, the day advances, not through action alone, but through patience layered upon patience, until movement feels almost like relief. When the loading finally begins, it does not feel like a clear start. There is no sharp moment when waiting ends and work takes its place. Instead, the two overlap, blending together until you're already lifting before you realize the shift has happened. You step closer to the boat, standing at the edge where earth meets water. The ground here is slicker, softened by constant contact with the river. You plant your feet carefully, testing for firmness before committing your weight. A misstep would not be dramatic, but it would be inconvenient. A wet garment, a bruised shin, a loss of balance that costs energy. The first sack is heavier than it looks. Grain settles into itself, shifting its weight as soon as you lift. You bend, grip the coarse fabric, and straighten slowly. The motion is familiar, but that does not make it easy. Muscles respond with a dull resistance, as if reminding you that they were already used earlier. You carry the sack a short distance, only a few steps, yet the strain is immediate. The sack presses into your arms and chest, rough fabric scraping against skin through thin cloth. As you move, you are careful not to hurry. Quick movements waste strength and invite mistakes. At the boat's side, someone reaches out to receive the load. There is a brief moment where the weight is shared, then released. The sack settles into the hull with a soft, final sound. One down, many more to follow. Loading is slow by necessity. Each sack must be placed with thought. Too much weight on one side, and the boat lists. Too much forward, and the bow rides low. Balance is not a concept here. It is a physical condition, adjusted piece by piece. You pause briefly, straightening your back. The pause is short, but meaningful. It allows breath to return to a steady rhythm. Around you, others are doing the same, each person moving at a pace that conserves effort rather than displaying strength. Another sack, another careful lift. The rhythm establishes itself quickly. Bend, grip, lift, step, pass, release. Between each repetition, there is a moment of stillness. It is not rest, exactly, but it keeps the body from slipping into wasteful tension. Sweat begins to gather along the spine, at the base of the neck. The sun is higher now, its warmth direct and unyielding. As the sacks accumulate in the boat, the waterline changes. You notice it without consciously looking. The boat sinks lower, inch by inch, responding to the added weight. The rope that holds it to shore tightens, then relaxes as the hull settles. Someone inside the boat shifts the sacks, nudging them into place with feet and hands. They move carefully, maintaining balance on the uneven surface. The wood beneath them is slick, worn smooth by years of use. Occasionally, a sack tears slightly at a seam. Grain spills out in a narrow stream, pale against the dark wood. It is gathered quickly, pressed back into place, the tear tied off as best as possible. Loss is minimized, but never entirely prevented. The donkey stands nearby, lighter now with each sack removed. Its sides heave gently as it breathes. It lowers its head, ears flicking, patient in its own way. When the last sack is lifted away, the animal is led aside, its part finished for the moment. Now come the jars, clay containers, sealed with stoppers and resin, each one heavy and awkward. They cannot be stacked carelessly. A cracked jar means lost contents and extra work later. You lift one, cradling it against your body. The surface is cool at first, then warms as it presses against you. The weight pulls downward, forcing your arms to tighten. You move slowly, aware of the slick ground beneath your feet. Inside the boat, space grows tighter. The person arranging the cargo must step carefully, turning sideways, adjusting position with small shifts. There is no room for wasted movement. Loading takes time, more time than anyone would prefer. The sun climbs steadily, and with it the heat. Sweat runs freely now, dampening clothing that was already slow to dry. Flies gather again, drawn by moisture and motion. They are waved away without much effect. Your hands ache, not sharply, but persistently. The skin feels tight, stretched. Fingers stiffen slightly between lifts. You flex them when you can, but relief is brief. There is no conversation beyond what is necessary. A word to signal readiness. A short warning when balance shifts. Voices stay low, conserving breath. At last, the final piece is placed. The boat sits heavy in the water, its sides lower than before, but still safe. Someone checks the load one last time, pressing down on a sack, testing for movement. Another adjusts a rope, ensuring it will hold until departure. You step back, letting your arms hang loosely at your sides. The effort lingers in your body, a warm heaviness that settles into muscles and joints. The work is done, but the fatigue remains, carried forward into whatever comes next. You look at the boat, now full. It is not impressive. It is not elegant, but it holds what it must, and that is enough. Soon it will move. For now it rests, and so do you, standing quietly at the river's edge, breathing in the thick, warm air, waiting once again. When the boat finally leaves the shore, it does not feel like a beginning. There is no sense of departure, no clear line crossed. The rope is loosened. The hull shifts. Water slides along the wood in a slightly different way. That is all. You step into the boat with care, testing the surface before committing your weight. The hull responds immediately, rocking just enough to remind you that it is floating, not resting. You adjust your stance, feet placed wider apart, knees soft. Balance here is not something you achieve once. It must be maintained continuously. The river accepts the boat without comment. It does not speed up. It does not resist. It continues moving as it always has, wide and steady, carrying you along whether you agree with its pace or not. Upstream travel is slow. Always. You take up a pole, it's smoothed by many hands before yours. The end disappears into the water with a dull sound as it meets the riverbed. You lean into it gently at first, then with more intention. The resistance is constant, heavy, but not sharp. Push, pause, recover. The motion repeats, measured and deliberate. Each push advances the boat only a little. The current presses back quietly, never dramatically, but always present. You feel it through the pole, through your arms, into your shoulders. Others work alongside you. Some pull, some manage the steering. Someone watches the cargo, adjusting when the boat shifts. No one speaks unless necessary. Breath is used carefully. Time begins to stretch again. The sun is high now, and there is no shade on the river. Light reflects off the water's surface, bright but not blinding, forcing you to narrow your eyes slightly. Heat settles into your body, building gradually. Sweat runs freely, carrying salt into your eyes, onto your lips. You pause between pushes, resting the pole against the boat's side. The pause is short, but it allows your arms to recover just enough. You roll your shoulders slightly, easing tension that has already begun to collect there. The boat moves forward, but so slowly that it barely seems to change position. The riverbank slides past at a patient pace. Reeds appear, then pass. A bend in the river approaches and recedes without urgency. This is when upstream travel begins to feel endless. There is no variation in the work, no moment of ease, no sudden difficulty, just the same motion again and again. Push, pause, breathe. You feel the weight of the cargo more clearly now. The boat sits deep in the water, and every movement must overcome that heaviness. The pole sinks into the riverbed more firmly. When you lift it, water clings to the wood, dripping back in slow lines. At times, the bottom is softer. Mud yields under the pole, stealing effort without returning much movement. At other times, the riverbed is firmer and the push feels more effective. You learn to sense the difference through the pole, adjusting pressure instinctively. Someone at the bow makes a small correction, guiding the boat away from shallower water. A hand gesture replaces words. Everyone responds without comment. Hours pass in this way, or perhaps less, or more. It is difficult to know. The body marks time differently now. Arms grow heavy. The lower back tightens. Legs remain slightly bent for so long that they begin to ache without sharpness. The ache becomes part of the background, like the sound of water against the hull. Occasionally, a faint breeze moves across the river. It brings brief relief, cooling sweat on skin, lifting damp cloth away from the body. When it fades, the heat returns, heavier for having left. You drink sparingly when the opportunity comes. Small sips, enough to ease the mouth, not enough to weigh you down. The water tastes of the river, familiar, not pleasant, but accepted. There is no conversation to distract you. Thoughts slow, then circle. The mind begins to match the rhythm of the body. Push, pause, breathe. This is the endurance of the Nile. Not danger, not drama, just persistence. At some point, you realize that the work has become almost automatic. Muscles move without instruction. The pole rises and falls in a steady pattern. You could do this with your eyes half closed, guided by sound and feel alone. This is both useful and dangerous. Fatigue hides itself when routine takes over. You remind yourself, quietly, to remain aware. A misplaced push could send the pole sliding. A slip could cost balance. So you continue, slowly, carefully, without expectation of reaching an end anytime soon. The river curves again. The current shifts slightly. You adjust without thinking, body responding before thought forms. Upstream travel does not reward effort with speed. It rewards it with progress measured in patience. As the sun begins its long descent, the light softens, though the heat lingers. Shadows stretch along the riverbank. The boat continues forward, unchanged in its rhythm. You are tired now in a way that does not demand rest immediately, but promises it later. The kind of tiredness that settles deep and stays. And still you push, and pause, and breathe. Night does not arrive suddenly on the river. It approaches in stages, each one quiet enough to miss if you are not paying attention. The light softens first. The harsh brightness of midday fades into something flatter, less demanding. Shadows stretch along the banks, growing longer and thinner. The water darkens, reflecting less of the sky and more of itself. By the time the decision is made to stop moving, your body has already accepted it. The boat drifts closer to the riverbank, guided with care. The pole touches bottom one last time, then lifts free. A rope is thrown, caught tied. The boat settles, rocking gently before finding a familiar stillness. You remain standing for a moment after the work ends. It takes time for the body to understand that the effort has stopped. Muscles hold their tension a little longer than necessary. When you finally lower yourself to sit, the release is noticeable. The deck is hard beneath you. There is no softness to it. Wood presses into hips and thighs, and you adjust your position slightly, searching for a place that hurts less. There is no place that does not hurt at all. Around you, others do the same. Some stretch carefully, easing stiffness from backs and legs. Others simply sit, hands resting on knees, breathing quietly. No one speaks much. Voices feel unnecessary now. The river sounds different at night. During the day, movement dominates, splashes, poles, the creak of wood under strain. Now the water seems closer, more present. Small ripples brush against the hull in a steady rhythm. Somewhere nearby, an insect calls briefly, then stops. You take a small amount of food when it is offered. Dry grain, perhaps. Something simple. It does not satisfy hunger completely, but it dulls it enough to allow rest. Eating is slow, deliberate. There is no pleasure in it, only necessity. As darkness deepens, the temperature shifts again. Heat leaves the air, replaced by a coolness that settles quickly. Damp clothing grows cold against the skin. You pull what fabric you can closer, but it offers limited protection. There is no fire on the boat. Fire is for sure when it can be controlled. Here, in close quarters with cargo and rope, flame is avoided. The darkness remains mostly complete. You lie down carefully, choosing a place where the deck is least uneven. Your body protests as joints bend in unfamiliar ways. There is no position that feels natural. You settle anyway. Sleep comes slowly and lightly. The boat moves even when it is tied. Small shifts, gentle rocking. Each motion is subtle, but constant. Your body responds to it, never fully relaxing. The mind remains alert, half listening to the water, to the rope, to the quiet presence of others breathing nearby. Cold seeps upward from the deck. It finds the spaces where clothing has thinned, where skin presses directly against wood. You shift once, then again, trying to conserve warmth without drawing attention. Somewhere in the night, you wake briefly, or perhaps you never fully slept. The distinction is unclear. The sky above is darker now, stars faint but present. The river reflects them imperfectly, breaking them into fragments. A sound carries across the water, distant, indistinct. You listen for a moment, then let it go. Not everything requires response. This is how nights on the Nile pass. Not in rest, but in endurance. Morning will come eventually. The body knows this, even when sleep is shallow. For now, you remain where you are, breathing quietly, waiting for the light to return. Morning returns quietly, as it always does, not with brightness, but with a thinning of the dark. You notice it first in the air. The night's coolness loosens its hold, replaced by something neutral and still. The river changes its sound slightly, the small movements becoming easier to hear as the world wakes. You sit up slowly, joints stiff from the night on the deck. The wood beneath you is cold where your body has not touched it, warmer where it has. You roll your shoulders once, carefully, then bring your feet beneath you. Standing takes a moment. Balance must be found again. Fishing begins early, not because it is peaceful, but because it is practical. The nets are already there, coiled and damp, waiting. They have been used many times before, and they show it. Fibers are darkened and rough. Knots are uneven, added and repaired over seasons of wear. No net here is whole in the way it once was. They exist in a state of constant correction. You lift one, feeling its weight pulled downward. Even before it is cast, it demands attention. The smell of it is sharp. River water Fish, old plant matter. It clings to your hands and clothing without effort. Fishing on the Nile is not a solitary act. Even when done quietly, it is shared. Someone steadies the boat. Someone watches the water. Someone manages the line, keeping it from tangling. Each role is simple, but none can be ignored. You lower the net into the water rather than throwing it. There is no flourish. Splashing only wastes energy and disturbs the river more than necessary. The net sinks slowly, spreading as it goes, guided by practiced hands. Then you wait. The waiting here is different from earlier pauses. It has an edge to it. Not excitement, but expectation. The net rests beneath the surface, unseen. You cannot know what it holds until it is lifted again. Time passes quietly. The river continues. The boat drifts just enough to require correction. Someone adjusts position with a pole, keeping the net where it should be. When the net is finally drawn up, it comes slowly. Water pours from it in thin streams. The weight increases as it rises, pulling against your arms. Sometimes there's almost nothing. A few small fish, barely enough to justify the effort. They are removed quickly, placed in a container, and the net is lowered again without comment. Other times, the net holds more. Not abundance, but sufficiency. Enough to matter. Enough to make the effort worthwhile. Even then, there is no celebration. Fish must be dealt with immediately. They are slippery, difficult to hold. Hands move quickly, efficiently, separating catch from net, checking for damage to the fibers. The net is inspected after every lift. Tears appear often, especially where the riverbed is rough or where debris catches unseen. Repairs are made on the spot, fingers working methodically, tying new knots where old ones have failed. Fishing is not about the catch alone. It is about maintaining the tools. As the morning progresses, the sun climbs again. Light reflects off the water, forcing you to squint. Heat returns, and with it the familiar heaviness. Sweat mixes with river water on your skin, leaving a fine residue when it dries. You become aware of fatigue again, but it does not stop the work. Nets are lifted, lowered, lifted again. The motion repeats until it becomes background, something the body does while the mind drifts slightly. This is not the fishing of stories. There is no quiet joy in it, only repetition. At times, the net comes up empty. Entire lifts yield nothing but water and weeds. No one remarks on it. This is expected. The river does not give evenly. When enough fish have been gathered, the work slows. The nets are rinsed, wrung out as best as possible, then set aside. They will need more attention later. Drying, further repairs. That work never ends. You sit back briefly, letting your arms rest. The ache in them is dull, spreading, familiar. It does not demand immediate relief. It simply exists. The fish lie nearby, small and unremarkable. They will be eaten, traded, or preserved in simple ways. They're not trophies. They are sustenance. As you look out over the water, you see other boats doing the same work. Nets rising and falling. Figures moving slowly, deliberately. The river supports all of them, but not generously. It requires patience in return. Fishing on the Nile is not romantic. It is necessary. And necessity does not hurry. You remain where you are, hands smelling of river and fish, body warmed by effort and sun, waiting for the next task to make itself known. After the morning nets have been dealt with, the boats take on a different task. Not cargo this time, nor fish, but movement of people and occasionally animals. You stand on the deck, arms resting lightly on the side. The hull beneath your feet shifts gently as water moves under it. The balance is familiar now, not demanding, but always present. You watch the river's current, noting its subtle push against the boat. You have learned to anticipate it, not to challenge it. A family approaches the riverbank. They do not hurry. Their pace is deliberate, as if they have accepted the slow rhythm of travel. Children cling to adults' hands or skirts. Animals, goats or sheep, follow, reluctant in their own way, hooves slipping slightly in the mud. They climb aboard quietly. Each step is careful. The animals are guided gently, their weight shifting the boat slightly with each movement. You feel the subtle changes beneath your feet. Adjust stance. It is not difficult, but it requires attention. The river does not assist. It allows you to move, but it does not carry the weight. You must distribute it evenly. Too far forward, and the bow dips. Too far back, and the stern takes on water at the slightest wave. The animals sense this instinctively, and sometimes panic slightly, requiring correction from those guiding them. You notice your hands are busy again, though not lifting, adjusting ropes, steadying oars, lightly touching an edge to keep balance. Motion now is subtle, controlled, quiet. Energy must be preserved. The family settles. Children crouch to avoid rocking. Adults shift weight slowly to find comfort. Animals are pressed gently against the hull or each other, bodies moving with small, constant adjustments. You step to the pole. Push. Pause. The boat drifts slowly from a bank. Forward movement is minimal but steady. You notice that carrying people is different from sacks. Sacks do not resist. Sacks do not panic. People shift, breathe, react, and animals respond unpredictably. Balance is dynamic. The sun climbs higher. Shadows shorten. Heat presses against your body, making every motion slightly heavier. Sweat gathers again. It drips from temples, runs into eyes. Your hands remain busy, wiping away moisture or guiding ropes. Nothing is wasted. The river responds in its own subtle way. Currents shift gently. Eddies form behind submerged stones. Water brushes the hull in almost imperceptible waves. You feel these changes through the pole and the soles of your feet. Reaction is slow, deliberate. Overcorrection risks tipping small weight balances. Undercorrection risks drift. At times, conversation occurs quietly. Instructions, reminders, small gestures exchanged. Words are minimal, chosen carefully. Each is functional, not friendly. You do not speak more than necessary. It is enough to guide the boat. Animals make noises too. A bleat, a shuffle, a snort. You hear them, acknowledge them subtly, but do not allow them to dominate attention. They are part of the work, not companions, not decoration. Time continues, not measured in hours, but in effort. Each push of the pole, each careful adjustment of cargo or passengers marks its passage. By now, the repetition is hypnotic. The body and mind settle into it. Breathing becomes part of the rhythm. Motion merges with awareness. You notice fatigue creeping in, slow and steady. Not sharp, not alarming, but undeniable. Muscles ache in predictable ways. Arms, shoulders, lower back. Your body reminds you it has labored, but it does so gently. The boat moves forward slowly, carrying people and animals without fuss, without ceremony. The river facilitates, but does not aid. It does not hurry, nor does it complain. By mid-afternoon, the ferrying task completes. People disembark with careful steps. Animals return to firm ground. The boat, lighter now, rocks gently in response. You feel a small relief in muscles that were engaged continuously, but the day is far from over. Energy remains a precious commodity. The river has carried you far, though it feels as if nothing has changed. Banks on either side seem similar. Water slides past unhurriedly. Life has moved, but only in measured increments. You lean against the side of the boat briefly, hands resting. The mind drifts. The body listens to the river. Small muscles release tension. Larger ones hold, aware that the next task will come, as it always does. You notice the quiet endurance of this work. It is not heroic. It is not celebrated. It is repeated day after day with attention and care. Its value is practical. Its demand is continuous. Its reward is survival. This is the rhythm of ferrying on the Nile. Slow, constant, necessary. And as you sit there, waiting for the sun to shift, for evening to approach, you understand how easily fatigue can accumulate in this environment. Not sudden, but gradual, folding itself into every movement. The river moves on. You move with it. As the day stretches on, a new awareness settles over you. It is the recognition of repetition, not in the sense of boredom, but but as a physical presence that presses against the body, the mind, and the senses. You lift the oar again. The motion is familiar. Arms extend, hands grip the worn wood. The boat responds exactly as it always does, shifting in the current, rolling gently underweight. Water slips past the hull in steady lines. The world is quiet, aside from the rhythm of movement. There is nothing dramatic about this labor. No sudden danger or exhilaration. No applause or reward. Only the continuation of motion, of necessity, of endurance. You notice the subtle sensations, the friction of the oar against calloused palms, the occasional sting of a blistered finger, the heat of the sun pressing down on neck and shoulders. Sweat runs freely, soaking fabric and dripping into eyes, but the body accepts it as part of the rhythm. The river presents minor challenges constantly. A shallow patch requires a small shift of the pole. A submerged branch catches briefly against the hull. A slight gust tilts the boat. None are threatening, but all demand attention. The mind remains alert, though not tense. Awareness is quiet, methodical. You repeat the same actions countless times. Lift, push, balance, adjust. Each repetition mirrors the one before, yet none are identical. Slight variations accumulate, unnoticed unless carefully observed. They form the texture of labor, a continuous layering of effort over time. The fatigue grows gradually, a slow weight that presses into joints and muscles. There is no sudden collapse, only a persistent dullness, a constant reminder that the body has been used and must continue to be used. Breathing deepens, becomes part of the rhythm of movement, easing slightly as motion becomes habitual. Your gaze shifts to the banks. They seem unchanged, though the light has shifted. Trees and reeds cast longer shadows. Dust rises from the paths where animals have walked. The river flows past, indifferent to the human repetition upon it. It provides what is needed: support for the hull, passage through water, sustenance, and transport. Others on the boat echo your motion. Oars rise and fall, poles dip and press, bodies shift subtly to maintain balance. Their movements are not synchronized exactly, but they are aligned by shared experience. Communication is minimal, often nonverbal. Gesture and eye contact suffice. Efficiency matters more than conversation. The repetitive labor induces a subtle trance. You feel your mind wander, yet remain tethered to the boat and its demands. Small sensory details come forward. The warmth of sun on wet skin, the texture of the wooden deck beneath bare feet, the scent of river water mixed with resin and sweat. These sensations anchor you, yet also invite quiet contemplation. There is comfort here, if it can be called that. Not ease, not relief, but a measured familiarity. The work is known, its challenge is predictable, its requirements simple: attention, care, endurance. Time passes in a peculiar way. Hours might elapse unnoticed. Movements continue. The river carries you steadily, though slowly. The world outside seems almost suspended, moving at its own pace, uncaring, patient. You pause briefly to adjust your position. Muscles protest slightly, but accept the change. Hands rub along, oars, palms finding small relief in friction. You breathe deeply, noticing the cadence of your own heartbeat, the subtle movement of water against the hull. Evening approaches. The light softens, shadows lengthen, and a cooler presence begins to settle in the air. The repetitive labor begins to ease, not because the work has stopped, but because the body has adapted to its rhythm. Fatigue remains, but it becomes companionable, expected. By the time the boat reaches its next resting point, you are aware of the accumulated effort. Every joint, every muscle, every tendon carries memory of repeated motion. Yet there is no complaint. The work has been done steadily, without drama. The river has carried you, and you have responded in kind. This is the truth of life on the Nile. Not heroic, not hurried, only the continuous, patient labor that allows survival to proceed day after day. You lean back, letting the whole settle beneath you. The river murmurs quietly, indifferent, steady. Your breath slows. The arms that lifted, pushed, and balanced now rest at your sides. The eyes, half closed against the lowering light, take in calm, muted colors, reflections on water, distant movement of reeds. Repetition ends for the day, but its memory lingers, heavy in the limbs, quiet in the mind, intimate with the rhythm of the river itself. The light begins to shift once more, softer now, less insistent than the heat of the afternoon. You notice it first as a thinning at the edges of shadows, a cooling along the water surface. The day's work is nearly done, yet there is still much to do before rest. Boats must be secured, ropes checked, oars stowed, and the shoreline prepared for evening. The river does not pause, and neither can those who live upon it. You step to the side of the boat, feeling the hull shift slightly beneath your weight. Small movements are magnified in the settling water. The current licks the wood gently, quietly reminding you that it is present, and that care is never complete. Nearby, others begin to move. Some gather bundles of rope, coiling them neatly. Some adjust the boat's mooring, shifting knots, ensuring the lines will hold through the night. Even the smallest mistake could lead to subtle problems, tilting a boat too far, loosening a rope, causing minor imbalance that might disturb sleep later. You follow the familiar routines, hands busy, arms stretching to reach knots and poles. The work is repetitive, yet essential. Each movement is deliberate, measured, practiced over years. You know the order of tasks, yet you approach each with the attention demanded by the river. Somewhere along the bank, small fires are lit. Not large, not intrusive. Their light flickers softly, casting muted orange tones against reeds and boats. The smoke rises lazily, blending with the cooling air. You inhale, noting the subtle scent of burning wood mixed with river moisture. It is familiar, grounding. Food is prepared in minimal fashion. Simple, sustaining meals. Grain, perhaps, or fish preserved from earlier. The aroma is faint, enough to suggest nourishment without overwhelming the senses. Eating is done with quiet care. Hands are wet, sometimes sticky from resin or river water, yet the rhythm of consumption is steady. Children move slowly along the bank, tending to small tasks or settling near adults. Animals are led to areas where they will not disrupt boats or fires. Movement is deliberate, controlled. Everything occupies its place. As darkness deepens, temperatures drop. The air cools quickly once the sun dips lower. Damp clothing chills the skin. Hands and feet grow colder despite minor activity. You wrap layers more tightly around your torso, feeling the subtle relief of warmth where fabric presses against skin. The river reflects this change. Its surface darkens, moving in deeper shades, while subtle eddies and ripples trace the current. Small waves lap against hulls, gentle reminders of the water's presence. The sound is constant, steady, hypnotic in its persistence. People move with calm efficiency. Tasks are completed slowly, never rushed. The pace matches the rhythm of the river and the diminishing light. Conversation is minimal, reserved for what must be communicated. Eyes glance often, noting shifts in position or unexpected movement, but voices remain low, deliberate. You notice fatigue accumulating again. Not sudden, not painful, but persistent. Muscles hold the memory of the day's labor. The arms that lifted, the shoulders that pushed, the back that bent. All speak softly of repetition and endurance. Breathing deepens, synchronized with quiet movements, then slows as tasks conclude. Some settle along the edge of the boat, sitting or leaning against supportive surfaces. Others remain active, adjusting a rope, nudging a pole, checking a hull seam. Activity continues until stability is achieved. Even stillness requires attention. The first stars appear in the sky. Not many, yet enough to mark time. They are faint, scattered, unobtrusive. Their light glimmers on the water, creating subtle patterns, reflections that shift with the boat's gentle movements. You take note, but do not linger. The rhythm of preparation continues. By the time all is set for nightfall, the river, the boats, and the people share a quiet balance. The work has slowed. The day's labor, repetition, and small struggles have been woven together. The world is dim, subdued, steady. You step back, hands resting lightly on the boat's edge, noticing the subtle interplay of shadow, water, and warmth from nearby fires. There is no excitement, no drama, only the calm knowledge that everything is as it should be for the evening. Night deepens slowly along the Nile, folding the river and its banks into a muted palette of dark blues and grays. The fires that mark the edge of the camp are smaller now, embers glowing faintly, casting gentle flickers across the wooden hulls. You move carefully across the deck, each step deliberate. The wood beneath your feet is slick in places, damp from the evening moisture that rises from the river. Every motion is measured to maintain balance. The slightest misstep might result in slipping into cold water, a minor hazard, yet enough to require attention. Nighttime duties begin quietly. Ropes must be checked once more. Lines securing boats are adjusted, knots tightened, slack removed. Even slight shifts in tension could allow movement, which could disturb the rest of the camp or the balance of cargo. Your hands work in slow, methodical movements, feeling the fibers, tracing each strand, noting wear and tear. Around you, others are engaged in similar tasks. Some check the cargo, ensuring sacks, jars, and nets are stable. Some stand watch, scanning the river and banks with quiet eyes, alert to any subtle change. Not for danger, exactly, but for order, for control, for the assurance that when the river shifts or wind rises, no chaos will follow. The air has cooled significantly. Damp fabric clings to skin, and breath is visible in faint clouds as it meets the night air. You tug clothing closer to conserve warmth. Movement generates heat, but only enough to prevent chill from becoming discomfort. Stillness allows it to creep in slowly, subtle, and insistent. Small sounds dominate the night. Water lapping against hulls. Distant animal calls. Soft wind through reeds. Every noise registers, yet none startle. Your ears remain attuned, trained to notice shifts without alarm. The body holds itself in a quiet readiness, even while the mind drifts between attention and calm contemplation. Food and water are minimal. A small portion of dry grain, or a sip of river water, sustains without burdening. Hands that labored during the day now move with gentleness, untangling ropes or smoothing fabrics. Motion is deliberate, slow, conserving energy for the hours ahead. Patience becomes its own rhythm. You notice the way your arms feel after repeated tasks. Muscles settle into low, constant tension, never completely relaxed, but never tight enough to strain. Breathing deepens, steadying, in harmony with subtle rocking of the boat. Balance and awareness are intertwined. Vigilance is quiet, not anxious. You pause for a moment, observing the reflections of the faint moonlight on water. The river holds shapes and shadows, slow-moving, gentle, never startling. Boats moored nearby shift minutely, responding to gentle current and light wind. You acknowledge these movements with soft adjustments, a tug here, repositioning there. Somewhere along the bank, a figure tends a small fire, adding a twig or adjusting embers. Its warmth is limited but appreciated, illuminating faces briefly before shadows reclaim them. Smoke rises lazily, blending with the cool night air, carrying the faint aroma of wood and water. You inhale, taking note but do not approach. Distance preserves both warmth and focus. Time becomes difficult to measure. Hours may pass without clear markers. The river, the boat, the camp, all move in subtle, imperceptible ways. Your mind oscillates between awareness and quiet trance. Attention is still required, yet it is calm, patient, hypnotic in its insistence. A child stirs softly nearby. A goat shifts its weight. A sack rubs gently against wood. You notice each movement, adjusting subtly to maintain equilibrium. This is vigilance, small, continuous, almost meditative. Fatigue is present, pressing gently into joints and muscles. But it is accepted, incorporated into the rhythm of night. The moon climbs higher, and the stars shift imperceptibly. Shadows deepen, forming layers across water, hull, and bank. You allow yourself a brief moment of observation, breathing slowly, letting the body settle into the gentle rocking of the Nile. Nighttime continues, uninterrupted and slow. No drama, no sudden events, only the measured, careful attention to survival, stability, and quiet endurance. The river flows. The boats remain. You move with them, part of their rhythm, neither hurried nor idle. Eventually, your hands find their place at your sides. Ropes remain taut. Cargo remains secure. The boat rests against the gentle current. Vigil continues silently in the body's awareness, in the mind's quiet attention. Sleep may come lightly, or rest may be brief. Either is sufficient, for the rhythm of the river carries on. You settle where you can, half reclining, body holding tension and calm in equal measure. The river murmurs beneath you. The night stretches wide, uninterrupted, carrying its quiet weight forward until the faintest hints of dawn. Dawn arrives quietly, almost imperceptibly. The darkness softens first at the edges of the horizon, faint light brushing reeds and the river's surface. You notice it gradually, in the cooling air warming slightly, in shadows thinning along the deck. You rise slowly, muscles stiff from night's vigilance. The body protests gently, shoulders back, legs, a dull reminder of the repetition and labor of days past. You move carefully, testing balance, finding footing on the slightly damp wooden deck. Each motion deliberate, conserving energy while acknowledging necessity. The river greets the new day with subtle changes. Currents shift slightly, eddies form along submerged stones. Small ripples scatter across the reflective surface. No one hurries. The water continues without urgency, indifferent to human schedules. You watch, noting these minor alterations, adjusting stance and grip as needed. Morning tasks begin almost immediately. Cargo must be inspected, ropes retied or loosened as needed, nets dried, repaired, and set aside for later use. Animals must be checked, ensuring they are calm, fed, and ready for the day. Food is prepared in small portions, eaten slowly, deliberately. No haste, no urgency, only methodical, practical motion. The light strengthens gradually, revealing textures and details previously hidden in night's shadow. Wood grain, rope fibers, worn leather, mud-caked boots, faded cloth. Each element is noticed, assessed. Minor imperfections corrected before they can cause future issues. Tiny attentions accumulate into a larger order, a continuity of labor that holds the camp together. You move again to the edge of the boat. Poles are lifted, oars positioned. The hull feels heavier now with anticipation, carrying both the memory of labor and the promise of continuation. Even the slightest movement requires awareness. Balance maintained through subtle shifts of body, careful redistribution of weight, measured use of muscle. Your hands are familiar with this rhythm. Lift, adjust, balance, pause. Breathing synchronizes with movement, steady and low. Fatigue lingers from yesterday and the night's vigil, but it is incorporated, not fought. Your body has adapted to the long, slow rhythm of life on the river. Time passes slowly, almost unnoticeably. The sun climbs, light warming exposed skin, dry and persistent. Sweat gathers once more, dampening clothing, mixing with river water residue from previous days. You wipe your hands sparingly, mindful of efficiency. Effort is conserved wherever possible, yet the work continues steadily. From the banks, distant figures emerge, neighbors, travelers, other boats preparing for their day. The river hums quietly with routine motion, poles dipping into water or sliding against the hull, nets lifted and lowered. Everyone participates in the same pattern, aligned by shared understanding of necessity, not competition or spectacle. The day's repetition is hypnotic. Lift, pull, adjust, observe, pause, breathe. Actions mirror each other across hours, across boats, across people. Subtle variations appear, but the rhythm remains constant, unbroken. You take a moment to observe the surroundings. Reeds sway lightly, reflecting in the water. Birds move quietly overhead, wings slicing through air with minimal sound. Ripples form and fade, leaving barely perceptible traces. Everything moves, yet nothing hurries. You are part of this measured continuity, carrying forward the legacy of daily labor that has persisted along the Nile for centuries. Fatigue deepens gradually, not sharp or alarming, but persistent, pressing into every joint and muscle used yesterday, last night, and this morning. You accept it calmly. There is no resistance, only continuation. By late morning, tasks are complete or set in motion for gradual completion. Nets drying on the bank, small fires tended to, cargo rechecked. The river is calm, steady, the air thick with warmth. You pause, hands resting lightly, breath measured. The weight of hours, labor, and endurance rests along with you. Indistinct but undeniable. This is life on the Nile. Slow, repetitive, enduring, necessary, persistent. As you take one last glance along the river, the boats, and the banks, you realize that the rhythm will continue. Lifting, adjusting, balancing, observing, pausing, breathing. It will continue long after individual fatigue fades, long after one day ends. The river does not hurry, and neither do those who follow its guidance. You settle into this knowledge, body holding the memory of labor, mind tracking the quiet, persistent flow of water, light, and shadow. Dawn becomes morning, morning becomes day, and the cycle of careful, repetitive survival presses on. The day winds down slowly, though it is not truly ended. The river continues its patient, unhurried journey, carrying the boats, the cargo, and those who travel upon it. You feel the subtle shift in air as sunlight softens, shadows deepen, and the Nile takes on the muted colors of evening once more. You sit quietly on the deck, letting the body rest after hours of repetitive labor. Muscles relax gradually, though some stiffness remains, a gentle reminder of effort, endurance, and the passage of time. Breath settles into calm patterns, in tune with the river's gentle rocking. You notice it fully now, the subtle rhythm of water against wood, the whisper of a faint breeze, the occasional distant call of an animal on the bank. In these moments, you reflect on the continuity of life along this river. It is not a story of heroism or triumph. There is no grand narrative, no sudden revelation. There is only repetition, subtle change, quiet survival, and the patient march of time. The rhythm itself is a kind of constancy, a quiet meditation on the nature of endurance. The tools of daily life, oars, poles, nets, ropes, rest beside you. They are worn, familiar, and essential. You notice the texture of the wood, the slight give of fibers under your hands, the careful knots that hold together boats, cargo, and, indirectly, the lives of those who rely on them. Attention to these small details ensures continuity, even when no one is watching. The air cools further. The river carries reflections of fading light and emerging stars. Shadows stretch long across the water. You breathe deeply, noting the subtle mixture of warmth from day and chill from approaching night. Clothing pressed closer, muscles stretching, you allow the mind to drift while remaining gently tethered to this environment. There's a calm discomfort here. The body is aware of effort. The memory of fatigue presses lightly, and the mind registers the subtle necessity of vigilance. Yet there's also peace, a measured, enduring peace born from repeated care, attention, and patience. You reflect on the people along the river. Some sleep lightly. Some remain awake, adjusting a rope, nudging a cargo sack, observing movement. Each contributes in small, quiet ways. Each action ensures that tomorrow will continue as today has, slowly, deliberately, steadily. The river itself seems to exhale. There is no rush, no concern. Its movements are steady, continuous, indifferent to human perception of time. The boats float, adjusted by careful hands. The lights of fires flicker gently, casting muted tones across water and deck. Life persists quietly, without drama, without spectacle. You may feel fatigue pressing deeper now, in your arms, shoulders, back, legs. It is familiar, accepted, incorporated into the rhythm. Your body remembers every motion from the past day, the past night, the past hours along the river. The mind, calm and reflective, follows the river's lead, letting attention move between small details and broader impressions. As darkness deepens fully, the river becomes a quiet expanse of muted color and subtle motion. You settle more completely, letting hands rest lightly, muscles relax where they can, eyes half closed against the diminishing light. Every breath, every heartbeat, every gentle sway of the hull blends into the rhythm of the Nile. This is life on the river. Not grand, not dramatic, but essential, continuous, and enduring. A lesson in patience, a reflection on endurance, a quiet meditation on time, effort, and the persistent, unhurried flow of nature. You may drift in and out of sleep now. Let your body and mind follow the slow, gentle guidance of the river. The Nile moves on, steady and enduring. So too does life along it, carried forward by repetition, care, and quiet persistence. Sleep if it comes. Listen if it lingers. The river will remain, and its rhythm will continue long after you have closed your eyes. This has been another journey with Sleepy Historian. Gentle thanks for accompanying us along the Nile today. If you have found calm, curiosity, or simply a place to drift, know that you are part of this ongoing, enduring rhythm. Perhaps you will return for another story, another river, another quiet passage through time.